Organization of information. This is LS500. In this lecture, we're going to talk about why it's important to organize information. Of course, this is LS500. This is not the Organization of Information class or the cataloging class. So we're not going to go into a lot of detail. I just want you to have a theoretical knowledge about the importance of organization of information and why it's so important to understand how information is organized, because then searching for information becomes more efficient. Okay, if we know how organization is organized, or in today's world the digital representation of organization it's organized, then we'll be able to access and retrieve information more efficiently. That's the whole idea of today's lecture. So, understanding information. We must understand in order to assist power and benefit of organization, and searching systems easier when you are familiar with the organization scheme. In other words, accessing information becomes more efficient. And of course, if we are more efficient searchers, and then we will become better librarians. We will become better reference librarians. So everything is tied up here. But what we have to do is we have to do bibliographic control. And bibliographic control is a process of organization information to make it available to persons seeking to locate it and use it. Okay? Let's see what bibliographic control means. It's an activity that is, of course, basic to librarianship. In history of librarianship in the U.S. is closely associated with development of bibliographic organization schemes. And we have two main ones. We may have others too. There are many ways to organize information. But the most widely used here in the U.S., I think, are Dewey's classification scheme, and of course LS, or what we call the Library of Congress classification scheme. Not LS, I'm sorry, LC. I don't know what I said, LC. It's Library of Congress. Systems of bibliographic control developed to make universe of published information accessible. And here the key word is universe, and now we're going to see why. We have a bibliographic universe and bibliographic control. These are two main concepts. Bibliographic universe refers to the totality of published items regardless of date, format, or location. In other words, bibliographic universe refers to the totality, to all information items that have been published, regardless to when they were published, regardless in what format they were published, or their location. Now, bibliographic control refers to the organizing of these items. And here is the key that I want you to understand, or rather, the organization of representation of these items. In other words, and that has to be clear in our mind, when we have something in our catalog, let's say our OPAC, we don't have the information item in the catalog. What we have there is a digital representation of that information item. We have and we call that the metadata. We have metadata on an information item. The information item may be a book, or a printed book, or maybe a video, or a CD, or an MP3, or a website. And the location may be physically in the library, or maybe outside the library. For example, it may be in the internet. But what we have in the catalog is a digital representation of that information item. Okay? The same when we had index card catalogs. If you ever if you ever saw a index card catalog, it was a beautiful piece of furniture with index cards inside. Well, the book that was a catalog wasn't inside of the furniture. What it was inside of the furniture was an index card. So the index card represented, it was a printed representation of the information item. In today's digital world, we talk about a digital or electronic representation of the information item. Okay, why do we have to have that? Because we want to be able to, here it says identify and locate, and of course meaning that we wanted to be able to access and retrieve the information. And not may or may not be the only way. Somehow we have to organize information. But one of the efficient ways of doing that is having a catalog. Okay, that is, again, and let me repeat, it's a digital representation of the information item. If we don't have a catalog, which is a tool for searching, how are we going to find something? And even if it's a printed book that we have in our library, if we don't have the catalog, we don't know where that printed book is located. Because through the catalog, we will know the location of the item. So that's something that what I'm trying to do in this lecture is to see that you understand why it's so important to organize information. Okay. Most common methods. Most common methods of ordering have been by author, by title, and by subject. Especially, this is true in the past when we had the index card catalog. In those times, a few years ago, not that long ago, but a few years ago, you may have a entry for the author name, last name and first name, another another entry for title, and another one or two or three, depending on how your library was organized, by subject. And so you were able to search by these three access points: author, title, and subject. Of course, now with electronic information, now with the use of electronic databases, we're able to have more access points. At the end of this lecture, I'm going to show you very quickly. We're going to go into the Clarion Library website, and we're going to see, a database, and we may go into the WorldCat, so you see how that works. The idea also, of course, that you're becoming a professional librarian is that you have to become familiar with the information sources. You have to become familiar with the online catalog, with the academic databases, and with the World Catalog too. Division of materials. Published materials are divided up in several ways. These are the traditional types. We have publishing mode, we have books, we have articles, meaning that they may be monograph or serials, for example. They may be, in terms of format, they may be printed or electronic. Subject areas, they may be general or they may be specific subject areas. This is how we divide materials in traditional ways. Now, of course, we have other type of materials, and these are hybrid and they are in evolving formats. Websites, for example, it's very hard sometimes to catalog a website, and it leads to confusion to think about a website as a static information item, or, as in most of the cases, is an evolving information item. It's an information item that is changing over time. That brings about difficulties. Even social media, for example. How are we going to catalog Facebook? That is a problem. Those are informational problems that we face in today's digital environment. There are, of course, electronic journals. The electronic journals, some are a electronic copy of the printed version, but they are considered a different, not a different journal, but in a different format, because this now is electronic. But there are other type of journals that have only an electronic version, and there are other type of academic electronic journals that they publish that they don't have a established periodicity, but they may be adding more articles along the way, not in a period of time, in a specific period of time. Let's say every 3 months or every 4 months or twice a year, but they may be adding more academic articles as they are being peer reviewed. So that brings about new problems in terms of information, organization of information. And there are, for example, consolidated sites, and these are sites that have hyperlinks in HTML or XML to other websites, okay? And there may be newer categories too that are not here. So these are some examples, but there are new things every day that are being created in this information and knowledge era that we're living on. So we have to think about how difficult our profession has become, but also that difficulty brings about more opportunities to grow professionally. Okay, we cannot in today's world, we cannot think that the library is what it used to be. That physical space where you had a collection of books and journals and newspapers, for example, and some music, etc. No, today we have that, but we have more because we have electronic resources too. So that opens up a world of possibilities. Okay, in terms of what? In terms of providing a better service to our community. So let's think about this very carefully and think how the environment, the informational environment, is changing and how that brings about some difficulties and challenges, but also it brings about opportunities for us to grow professionally. Okay. The main tool in our library is our catalog. Okay, this is what because the catalog represents, it's a digital, if it's an electronic catalog, it's the digital representation of our holdings. Okay, it's a primary means of locating and accessing items in a collection for many years, and still is. Function to display holding in a particular library. Evolve to act as access mechanisms of resources beyond the library. Nowadays, we may have consolidated searches, for example, and we may go to the library website here at Clarion, and we may be able to access what we have in the library, so holdings that we have in the library, but also we may also, I'm sorry for using the word twice, but we may be able to access information that is that the library has under subscription, or information that is in other libraries, or information that is in the internet, etc. So now we can go beyond the physical space on the physical holdings of the library. For example, and this is what happened with academic libraries, and Clarion University Library is one example of an academic library. The scope to include sources that indicate the contents of items, journals held by libraries, such as indexes and citation database, and of course also academic databases. Is specific to that particular library collection. So the catalog is specific to a particular library collection. Bibliographic records are selected from from the national database and may undergo modifications. Many of the cataloging today is done by copying prior cataloging. Okay, and what we do in the library is we may modify those records. We may add, for example, a local call number, or we can add a volume holding statement or other information. For example, if the item was donated by somebody, we may add that in our record. That will be different from other libraries. But in general terms, most of the time, etc., the cataloging is copied from national and international databases. For example, OCLC. That's one example. Of course, if we are cataloging primary documents that are unique, historical documents, etc., that we may find in our library, then of course you have to do the cataloging from the start. You cannot copy anything because that library possesses that unique document. Okay. Consulting national database answer questions. This is very important, and we can do an exercise today, and so we can go to the WorldCat. Does that item exist? And consulting catalogs answer the questions: does the library own the item? Where can the item be found? Okay, so if we do a search in a national database, we are looking for if an item exists and where it is located too, by the way. If we go to the WorldCat, for example, and you search for an item, if it's cataloged in any of the libraries who are affiliated to WorldCat, well, it will appear there, and it will tell you the location of the item. Okay. So it is. I mean, this is a great tool, and besides, remember that most libraries cooperate with each other, and now today we have the interlibrary loan. So if a resource is not in your library, you can always get access to that resource to the interlibrary loan. This is another way how we can help our patrons. That's another way to make a potential negative transaction, into a positive transaction. Because in most cases, we don't have the excuse anymore to tell our customer or to our patron, I'm sorry, we don't have that item here in our holdings. But we can get to the information item through interlibrary loan. So please take that into consideration. The library catalog includes all material held in collection regardless of date of publication or date of acquisition. Contents of catalogs can be a combination of several libraries, and that's what we call a union catalog. A catalog is made up of subrogates or representation of bibliographic objects. And here again, this is the key. Remember, the catalog doesn't have the object itself. It may have a link to an electronic information item, to a journal article, or to an MP3, or to a video, MP4. However, the catalog itself does not contain the item. It's a representation of the item. It's data about the item. And that, my friends, is what we call metadata, okay? Include books, journals, audio, video materials, maps, and other non-print items. Representations are called bibliographic records. When we use card catalogs, and some of you may remember using a card catalog, the record was printed on a set of cards. You know, you have 3, 4, 5 cards, depending on how complex was your catalog. In online catalog, it is the way it is written is in machine-readable information encoded in digital format, conforming to certain standards for content and structure of data. That's what we call MARC, a MARC record. If you haven't taken your cataloging class, you will soon, and you will learn about MARC and how you catalog an information item. Okay. And again, learning cataloging, it's very important. Let me fix this. I know what is this here. Okay. Okay, learning cataloging is very important. Not only because you will be able to catalog, that's also very important, but because you will understand how information is organized, and that will help you to be a better librarian, because you will be able to help, you will become a more efficient searcher. Okay? So here we are, a MARC record, it's a cataloging record. Cataloging record means a bibliographic record, or the information traditionally shown on a card catalog. The record includes, but not necessarily in this order, and nowadays of course has more information: description of the item, main entry and added entries, subject headings, classification or call number. MARC record contain often much more additional information. You can add more fields and have more information. Okay. Okay. A sample of a MARC record. For example, in the 100 field shows the main entry for items. In one case would be the author, for example. That's the 100 field is the main entry. Catalogs consulted rules to select one access point as the main entry. Even though MARC records retain the main entry concept, the 100 field, some catalogers are questioning that this might be outmoded or out of date. And they have a reason to question this, because in electronic information, when we have a database, and the catalog is a database, by the way, it's a database that with records and fields, many fields can be indexed. Not only the main entry, which is the author's name, but we may index other fields that are also searchable. So there is no need to define which one is the main entry, because in the digital environment, with the use of computers, we're able to search any of the searchable fields and that are indexed with the same efficiency that we would the main entry. So the idea of defining, or the idea or the concept of defining a main entry with electronic technologies, it's it's being debated. But let's say it's being debated. We don't need in today's digital environment a main entry. However, we still have that concept that the main entry in the MARC record is the 100 field. We have also to understand that which it's it may be very advantageous. We can, of course, we can search full text, but then we'll retrieve too much information that is not even relevant, but that is a possibility too. Then we will have to limit our search. Okay. Of course, in this class and in future lectures, we'll go into more detail about using and searching and accessing and retrieving online information. And I will be posting my lectures that I did for LS500, which is online retrieval. Because I think to be a good reference librarian, you have to be very strong in terms of using electronic information. This is an example of a MARC field. Here we have the entry, the main entry, the 100 field, and of course is the name. And then we have some other considerations there, such as tags, indicators, and subfields. Okay, it is again this, you will see this in detail in your 502 class, in your cataloging class. But this is, I just wanted to show you how, a representation of a MARC field, or of a MARC record. I'm sorry. Okay, internet resources. Librarians and other people engage in creative schemes to describe materials that only exist electronically. And that is called metadata. However, as I said before, when we are describing a resource, and I think I have my own opinion here, let's go back to this MARC record. When we are describing this resource, this book by Jim Amosky, or Amosky, whatever his name was, to me, this description here called data is metadata too. So in my opinion, it doesn't have to be only electronic resources. They can be also printed resources. So the title is 245 is Raccoons and Pipe Corn. Raccoons and Pipe Corn, or the number 300, which is a number of pages, 25 pages, etc. We are, or the editorial house, Lothrop, Lee and Shepherd Books. These, we are describing a information item. Okay, we are describing an information item. Therefore, we are working already with metadata. So in my opinion, again, metadata is not only for electronic resources, but it also for printed resources. But anyway, let's continue here in the slideshow. Okay, librarians and others engage in creating schemes to describe materials that only exist electronically, called metadata. The word metadata means data about data. Metadata articulates a context for objects of interest, resources such as, and these are information resources, MP3 files, library books, satellite images, videos, etc., in the form of resource description. As a tradition, resource description dates back to the earliest archive and library catalogs. Okay, so here they make the connection between metadata and resource description. Okay, I myself call it metadata, even if they are electronic or if they may be printed. And some formats, of course, and standards is the Dublin Core. But there are others. I don't know if I have told you that I work with the USGS, the U.S. Geological Service, and we use what we call the Darwin Core. And the Darwin Core is a set of resources and standards to catalog biological data. So I worked a year there, and I had to become familiar with the standards and with the resources, and the resource called Darwin Core. Not the Dublin Core, but the Darwin Core that is used for biological data. It's standards for metadata for biological records. Okay. Now we have access points, and this is a historical vision. This is a historical overview. There were three major type of access points: author, and we call it the main entry. Then we have title, and then we have subject. In a car catalog, a car was created for each author. each title and each subject. And we could create, sometimes we create more than one. We could create 3, 4, 5. Normally it would be around 3. So you would have how many cabinets? You would have one for the authors, another cabinet for the titles, and another cabinet for the subjects. And therefore you could get to the same item either if you knew the name of the author, or if you knew the title, or if you knew the subject. That's how it was. That's how you would traditionally search a index card catalog. Today, that seems like prehistorical search. Imagine having to search with only 3 access points. Well, in today's environment, that has totally changed. Okay. What do we do to assign subjects? Well, we use control vocabulary. And examples of control vocabulary are the Library of Congress subject headings, the Sears list of subject headings. And why do we use control vocabulary? Because it ensures that terminology remains consistent. And therefore, it makes searching more efficient. But this is traditionally, but let me point out that even today that remains true. We as professional librarians, we have to know how to use control vocabulary. We have to know how to use the Library of Congress subject headings. Why? Because the item was cataloged using control vocabulary. So if we use natural vocabulary, we may or may not be able to access the information item. Or let's even be more exact. We may or may not be able to access the digital representation of the information item. So we must use control vocabulary. For example, we must use the Library of Congress subject headings. Okay? Because if we use our own language, the search may be may end up being a positive search, and you may get to what you were looking for, but also it may happen that you won't be able to get to what you're looking for because that information item was not cataloged using natural language. It was cataloged using control language, and using control language ensures that terminology remains constant. So this piece of the puzzle hasn't changed. That is why I'm talking about this, because we have to understand what it is behind cataloging. Why? Because it will make us better searchers. It will make us better reference librarians. I know we'd like to search everything using keywords in Google, and that's fine, or even sentences of natural language. And that's fine for some searchers. But if we want to go into technical and academic information, then we won't be able to use Google because we don't have Google doesn't have access to many peer-reviewed journals. We have to go into academic databases that are pay subscription. And once we are there, we better use control language rather than natural language if we want to be successful in our search. Or let's put it this way, if we want to be more efficient. Okay? And that's very important. Online catalogs. They have gradually replaced card catalogs, and cataloging principles have begun to change. Of course, change is always very slow, but they have begun to change. we still have the underlying instruction of the MARC record. All bibliographic information displayed within various fields of MARC record along with the identifying tag. So behind the electronic card catalog, we still have the MARC record. We don't, or the customer or the patron doesn't see that when he or she searches the catalog. But you as the librarian may go and see the MARC record because you understand the structure of the MARC record, and that may make you a better searcher too. So almost all catalogs have a way to show you the whole record, the whole bibliographic record. Okay. Now we shift from paper to electronic. Now we have more subject access points. So we are not able to search a catalog not only by author, title, and subject. We may also search by language, or by editorial house, or by year of publications, or by source of publications in the case of serials, etc. Fewer headings were used when a card for each was necessary. Why? Okay, because it took a lot of time to make an index card. You had to do it in a typewriter. Nowadays, when you are entering the information in a computer, it becomes easier and faster, and especially if you are importing the cataloging from OCLC, for example. More subject headings increase possibility of retrieving an item. That is true, but we also have to take that with a grain of salt. But because it also increases the possibility of retrieving too many items that are not relevant and pertinent for the search. Ability to gain overview of full bibliographic record is often ignored by catalog user. This is very important, and I just talked about this, patron and reference librarian alike, when only the brief entry is displayed. So I always advise you as a professional to display the full bibliographic record and not only display the brief entry. Okay? Why? Because you as a professional, it will provide you more insight on the information you're looking for. Indexes, and this is very interesting. We have an index and abstracting class that I will recommend anybody to take. I have taught that class, and I think it was not my class, but the class in general. Whoever teaches the class, it's a very interesting subject, indexes. Of course, we all know about an index, back of the book index. You know, you any book, or not any, but most books, I guess, will have at the front, they have a table of content. But at the end, we have a index. We may have an index of geographic terms, of people, etc., etc. And index are very important because they point. For example, we're talking about back of the book index. The back of the book index is very important because it takes you from the index to the exact location of the information. If you're looking in a back of the book index on author index or name index or geographic location index, well, you search in the index and you're looking for the name of a city, and you find the name of the city, and it will tell you in what page that city is named in the book. So it's a marvelous, it's a fascinating tool for finding information. Of course, nowadays we don't think about how important an index is. But it's very index. It's very, very, very important because it takes you to the information you're looking for. And in the case of, for example, journals, once a year or once every 2 years, or whichever the publication policy was, they would put out a index. And with that index, you could search for information in specific issues and volumes. Because there wasn't any other way. Let's say you had a collection of a journal, the journal of the AMA, American Medical Association, JAMA, a very important journal, and you didn't have an index. How were you going to find information? Well, the only way, if you didn't have an index, was to browse each issue of the collection in order to find the information. So every once in a while, JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, published a printed index. So you didn't have to browse each issue, but you got the index and then you search the information in the index that would refer you to the issue, to the volume and issue, to the issue and volume. And that way you could get to your article. So imagine how troublesome was in the past to search for information, for academic information, for example. And all the work that a reference librarian had to go through to find that article that a doctor or a professor was looking for. You were looking for a health article in the Journal of the American Medical Association. So you have to get that printed index that would have referred you to the issue. Well, of course, today we still have indexes, by the way, and we have electronic indexes. And they are very important too. And I recommend that you become familiar using indexes, especially when you perform searches in academic databases. So, going back to the presentation, indexes means to point to, and indexes point to information located somewhere else. Because, and let me clarify this, when you go to a book and you go to the back of the book index or a periodical index, you only find the term there, but you don't find information about the term there. So it will point to information located somewhere else, either in the book or in the serial collection. Tools used to locate information within a document. Most familiar is found in back of a book, used to find where certain topics are discussed within the text. So an index is very important, and the story of the index is fascinating. So I will recommend that you think about this very carefully. I mean, we are professionals, we have to love our profession. This is something that we have to cherish, because now we take it for granted, but whoever came up with this idea of an index, of course, it wasn't one person. It developed through time. However, this is one of the greatest ideas in terms of information access and index. Indexes discussed here are to publish periodical literature. So, as I said before, we have an index on serials. Why do we have an index of serials? Because if we don't have an index, then we will have to browse each issue of that publication. So we need an index. They were produced, and they are produced now. They are electronic, of course, and it's ongoing. But in the past, they were produced on a regular schedule, provide access to topical content of a group of publications. Example, Reader Guides to Periodical Literature or Education Index, etc. And there are many examples. And each publication would, at the time, would have its own index. And they still do, but they may be in electronic format now. And of course, today we have what is called the Science Citation Index. There are two main indexes, the Social Science Citation Index and the Science Citation Index, both published by Thomson okay, and both in electronic format, and they are two, two of the most important electronic publications for the scientific world: the Science Citation Index and the Social Science Citation Index. Published in book or electronic form, may be cumulative for a year or longer in the case of serials. Most printed indexes are arranged in alphabetic order by subject, but of course they may have a index by author too, very important, and some do not provide title access to material. Okay, when in electronic format, many more points of access are available. Okay, and I'm going to show you an electronic index. And if you want to see an index, please get one book. Let me see if let me go and get my book, my textbook. And if you go to page, let's see what page. Okay, if we go to page 715 of your textbook, 7Y15, there you will find the index. Okay, we have the first index is an author and title index, and the second index in page 733 is a subject index. So this is a very good example of a printed index, a back of the book printed index. So please search in your textbook so you can have an example and you can think about the importance of an index. Indexes can be confusing because of subscription services that provide full text articles online even when the library does not own a periodical. That is true. Why is that confusing? Because you may find an issue that you need. You find the article, but the library doesn't have the periodical. And that's, I'm sure you have already experienced that. You're searching for something that you think you have access to, but you don't have access to the full text. You may only have access to the bibliographic record. And that may confuse you. Say, well, why is this here? Why can I have access to the bibliographic record, but I cannot have access to the full text? Okay, that's maybe confusing for somebody. And of course, the answer is that because your library doesn't pay the subscription for full text, and therefore you don't have access to that. But many users don't know that, so you have to explain that to the users. However, remember what I mentioned before. That may be a potential negative transaction. And one way for that transaction to become a positive transaction is to tell the user that you can get that article by using the interlibrary loan, and that he or she will get that article electronically. Okay? So a potential negative transaction becomes a positive transaction. Distinctions must be made, or user might expect to obtain all items listed in an index just like those in the catalog, and they are not. But there is always interlibrary loan. Single interface for materials access can complicate this for users because when they search, they don't know exactly where they are. So it is part of us as professional librarians to explain this to the user. Here we have some key concepts that I want you to study, such as bibliographic control, bibliographic universe, union catalogs, bibliographic record, index, authority control, subject cataloging, control vocabulary, thesaurus, synthetic structure, and access points. These are key concepts of organization of information. And we as professional librarians or future professional librarians have to be familiar with these concepts because that will make us better and more efficient searchers. Okay, that's the idea of today's presentation. Let me see if I have something to show you here. Here it is. Okay. Here, for example, let me go back here. Here we have, of course, you all recognize this. This is Clarion's website. And this is a library here. I mean, this is a library website. Okay, let's see. Let's go first to Academic Search Premier. Okay, here we have Academic Search Premier, and we can choose databases, for example. Let's choose database. If I select here, we get all databases. If we select here, we have none. Let's choose the ones that we have in library science. Okay, the first one is library literature, information science full text by Wilson. And the second one that I have here is library information science technology abstract. And I click OK. So I have selected two databases. Okay, normally you will use, I'm sure, this search box right here. And you will enter a term or an author or whatever you're searching for. But you can also use the advanced search. In the advanced search, you can search different types of fields. And I think I will do a class on searching, electronic searching, or I will link to my lectures on electronic searching. But anyway, we have here, these are the searchable fields. You can search by text, author, title, subject term, source, abstract, and the international serial standard number. And you can combine search by using the Boolean operators and, or, and not. And I will explain that in another lecture. You can also limit here your search. And this is what the presentation was referring about patrons being confused. Because if they don't click down here, and where you limit your publication to Clarion University and full text, they may get a hit that they think it is interesting for them, but they don't have access to the full text. However, we always have the option of doing a interlibrary loan, but we have to explain that to the user, because if not, the user or the patron may become frustrated because that's the article that he or she wants to read, but does not have access to it. Okay. But what I wanted to show you actually was more here, because I wanted to show you the index. So let's go to Library Literature Information Science Full Text. We click there, and we go to the index option. I bet many of you didn't know that databases had indexes, like the all printed indexes of serial collections. Of course, this is an index for the whole database. Okay? For what database? For this one here. Library Literature Information Science Full Text. And let me see how many indexes I have. Remember, I mentioned a few minutes ago that our textbook had, that I know, two indexes. One was the author title index, and the second one was the subject index. Well, in this database we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 indexes that we can search. Let's go to the other one to see if they have this. Let me click here, not here. Choose database. Okay. Let me see. Show all. Okay. Let me click on clear. Okay. Let me choose the other database, not the Wilson one, but this one. So let me deselect Wilson. Just a minute. We counted 10, right? Okay, let's see the other one. Okay, this is the Library Information Science Technology Abstract. So we go here, And let's see how many indexes this one has. Indexes, select. Okay, this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So this second database, Library Information Science and Technology Abstract, has more indexes than the Wilson one. So there is an so in somehow this one offers more ways to search. Okay. So as you can see, I wanted to show you that there is a difference among indexes and among databases. I'm sorry, we may have more or less indexes, but what I wanted to show you was that electronic database have indexes, just like the back of the book index or the serial collection index that I was explaining about the Journal of the American Medical Association. That's one example. Let me go here to show you another catalog, not our own catalog, but what we all know as the World Catalog. And the World Catalog is very impressive because the idea is that you can search holdings in hundreds of libraries around the world. So let's search for a name here. Let's search for my own name. I'm gonna put Aristigieta. Oh, here I am. Okay, I'm gonna put. Oh, let me. That won't work. Let me put my other last name. Okay, it's the author. I'm gonna click here. Oh, there we are. We have two records. One is a book, and one is in the internet, and you have to tell your patrons too that you have to remind them that this is not part of the holdings of your library, because the World Catalog is searching in many libraries around the world. So the first one is Information Seeking Behavior of Scientists in Venezuela, and the second one is Estudio Bibliométrico de la Producción Científica de Venezuela Index in Science Citation Index. And if I click here, it will tell me, or whoever is searching, let me see if I can put this smaller, okay, so we can see better. Okay, whoever is searching, first, here's the title. Secondly, here's my name. Third, this is the year of publication. Then the language. Then what it is a book. It's a dissertation. Thesis dissertation. And I think this is the important part. It will tell you where it is located. Okay? So you click here, and you know this is located in the US, but in the territory of Puerto Rico, at the University of Puerto Rico in Rio Piedras. Here it is. And this is the bibliographic record. Remember, we were talking about bibliographic record, and see how many descriptors they assign. I didn't do that. The cataloger did that. So science, periodical publishing statistics, scientific publishing statistics, bibliometrics, science, periodical publishing, Venezuela, etc., etc. They use Dewey, and this is a scriptor there, and they use OCLC, and the database is the WorldCat. So this is the World Catalog, and I just wanted to show you that you can search for resources that are not part of your library holdings. But again, you have to explain this to your to the patrons or to the users. As I said, I will in the future, I mean this semester later, I will link to other lectures that I already have produced on online searching, because I think it is very, very important that we are very strong searchers, not only using Google, as many of you do, and I do too, and there is nothing wrong in using that, but that we learn how to search academic databases, because that is what distinguishes or will distinguish you from a professional, in this case you and your patrons. Okay, being able to go beyond what you find in a Google search, because anybody can do Google search. But if you know how to use control vocabulary, then you are in a better position to help your patron. And this is what I was talking about, interlibrary loan. Okay, let's say somebody wants to read my dissertation here, and I will ask you, well, I found this. This is what I'm looking for. Can I get a copy? I said, no, we don't have a holding because this is in Puerto Rico. But you always can send a request through interlibrary loan. So what it was a negative, a potential negative transaction, it will become a positive one, because you will be able to get the resource. Okay? Okay, I think that's enough for today. Thank you.